We are live, baby. So anyway, let's see. The good thing is I didn't have any tech issues trying to come in today, so that's always good. And so yeah, that was good. That means I'm off to a good start. Let's see. I need to turn the camera off for 1 second. Gotta do something. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Let me just turn the camera off for 1 minute. All right. Okay. Hey, Tiara, and we have someone new, Karen. No, you know what? Your name looks familiar. I don't know if you've ever been to one of my lives, but I know I've seen your name. So anyway, I'm just gonna get started since I have two of you here. So, the title is "Why Did I Get Married? A Dive into My Shadow." So, I decided today to go ahead and just talk a little bit about my journey, right? Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit about, because seeing as I am the mistress of divorce, right? I wanted to talk a little bit about, why I decided to get married. But before we do that, let me just go ahead and let my two guests know, and for the replayers, um, I do have a private class coming up. It's called the Dark Feminine Activation Code, which is also the title, the name of my 4-week one-on-one container. But that's more that's a container, so yes, I'm letting you know. So yeah, so the container, which Tiara is a client, so that's why she knows what's up. So the one-on-one container is a little bit different from the class. So the class is teaching a little bit on the framework of what I do, but not, like I said, it's not the same as being in the container. But the reason why I call it the dark dark feminine activation code is, of course, the work that I do is rooted in the darker aspects of the feminine, because what we do is we dive into your shadow and we get into what you need to do once you come out of that marriage or that long-term relationship, and it's going into identity restoration, reinstalling inner authority. But like I said, with the container, we're getting more into the depth of it, so we're diving deep, right? As opposed to the class, like I said, I'm teaching on the different aspects of the dark feminine activation code, because as I always say, as the feminine, we are source code, right? Everything comes from us. Okay, nothing is getting through here but through us. So, forget about the bros and their tech robots and all that stuff. They're still trying to emulate what we have naturally, what we walk around with every single day, this portal to life and death, basically, because we decide who comes and who doesn't come. So, we get into the dark. That's the aspect of the dark feminine activation code. So I will be teaching on that class. It's going to be a private class. I will, once it's ready, it will be on my stand store. So once that's all done, I'll set that up and it'll be over there, and you'll be able to access it and come to the class. So that's most likely going to be. I'm still working on some things, so it'll be next week sometime. And then also, I'm still, my free 45-minute coaching sessions. Again, this is for women who have come out of long-term relationships or marriage. And I always say that when women are coming out of that, they're like a fish out of water, because it's like, okay, who am I? And so it's a lot going on with that. And so the coaching session, which is free, like I said, is basically to see where you are on your journey and how the one-on-one container can actually help you, what we can do once we get in there, right? And then also, if you haven't visited my stand store, make sure you go visit. Link is in the bio. I meant to put the link in here, but I'm not even going to try to mess with it right now because I'm doing this from my phone. If my daughter heard me, she'd be calling me a boomer right now, because I'm not even trying to fool with it. If I was on my Chromebook, I don't know, for some reason I could navigate it better doing that. But on my phone, I don't trust it. So link is in my bio, right? And go to my stand store, check out everything I have there. That's some good stuff there. So Also, if you're not following me on TikTok, if you're not following me on Facebook, link is in the bio. So, now let's get to today's topic. So, why did I get married? A dive into my shadow. So, doing this work, right? Being the mistress of divorce. Let's see. Okay. So, I'm always talking about relationship dynamics because it is an aspect of what I do, right? So I will discuss relationship dynamics between men and women, interpersonal relationships. I mean, it's a byproduct of what I do, right? But of course, I deal with post relationship or marriage. But I wanted to talk about why I did it because this is still rooted in identity, right? And when I started really doing this work on myself, I had to, I wanted to reflect back on what made me decide to do it. And not necessarily the circumstances surrounding it, but what was taking place with me internally, mentally and emotionally, what was going on there, right? And so, I did like this, like I call it the deep dive, or I call it diving the abyss. I had to do that because once I knew that I didn't want that life anymore, I didn't want to go back into those same patterns and end up finding myself back in the same situation, right? So I wanted to, be really honest with myself. And so, I would honestly say one of the reasons why I did it is it was rooted in fear. Hey, Sabrina. It was rooted in fear. And this was before all of the rhetoric of the Kevin Samuels and the red pill and, oh, you're gonna be alone and you're gonna be a lonely cat lady and blah blah blah. It wasn't even about that. And actually, you know what? I'm not even gonna sit up here and lie. I think there was an element to that, but this was before I knew that that was like a thing that men would talk about. And honestly, when I made that decision, when that realizing that that was one of the reasons, again, like I said, this was before the whole red pill manosphere or whatever, Kevin Samuel, whatever, stuff, right? But the fear that I had was, first of all, how am I going to be viewed by my family? How am I going to be viewed by society? Um, as you get older as a woman, it's like, well, when are you going to get married? When are you going to start having kids? And then I came from a very Christian family. So eventually, the talk was like, oh, Kim's getting a little older. What is she going to do? And blah, 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 all this stuff, right? And don't be dating somebody for a long time. My family's really looking at like, okay, when y'all getting married, right? I remember my cousin, she was dating this dude and she was with him probably 3 months, and the family was already trying to figure out how they could get married. Like, when are they getting married? So, it these are the things that, we contend with as women. So one part of that, when I said diving into my shadow, one aspect of that was the fear of, how am I going to look to people? How is society, my family, just everything, like, how am I going to be viewed as I get older and I don't have any children, I'm not married, right? And so those are some very common reasons why women make such life altering decisions like marriage and motherhood. And so the fear of how I was going to look or how I was going to be perceived, it was ready for her to get, yeah, and how I was going to be perceived, um, and yeah, like, what if I do end up being all by myself and being lonely and all that? Like, these were some fears that I had. And so, that's why when I was hearing about that rhetoric of the manosphere and all that, I was like, okay, they're actually right in that they take that fear that a lot of women have and they weaponize it. And it's easy to weaponize somebody's fear when they don't know themselves and when they haven't done that shadow work on themselves. So it's easy to take their fears and weaponize it. So that's what they do. So it's like, I can only imagine when I was carrying that, how I would have felt, listen, if I had been exposed to that kind of rhetoric, right? I can only imagine like how I would have felt about that, right? So, So that was one of the fears that I had, that, like I said, how it would be perceived and what my life would look like. Um, would I be like this lonely, woman and not have anybody? Like, all that stuff was going on in my head. So that was one reason. The other fear was, because these are rooted in fears. The other fear was, what if as I get older, what if I get to the point where I can't have kids? Right? That whole biological clock and all that stuff. So I was thinking about that. And again, here we go, making life altering decisions without having all of the information of what that will entail. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't completely naive to what motherhood would entail. I knew that it would ask a lot of me, right? And I think I was much more aware of what motherhood would ask of me as opposed to being a wife. And there were some fears about being a wife, because I was like, well, there's just certain things I don't want to have to keep doing. All, like, honestly, yes, I can cook, but that's not my thing that I like doing. Like, I'm not one of those women like, oh, I love to cook. And don't get me wrong, there's women who love to cook. That's y'all's thing, and I think that's awesome. I love it. Like, if cooking is your thing and you're really good at that, like, I have a friend right now, I tell her all the time, like, you need to be on Top Chef, because her food is like out of this world. And but for me, that's not my thing. Personally, I don't even really like doing it. And I always say that if you if you don't like cooking, honey, I don't think you should get married, because these men are going to expect these, because they have these patriarchal expectations of women. Now, unless you're going to marry a man who is really, like, basically wealthy enough to the point where you ain't got to do all that and he ain't expecting you to do it, then cool. But most men are going to expect you to do that. They're going to be looking for you to do it because they mamas did it. They saw their mothers do it for their fathers. They're going to expect you to do it. And if they were single, if they were raised by a single mom, they're really going to expect you to do it. Well, my mom used to cook. My mom worked every single day and she would still come home and cook. Right? So they're going to expect that. And if you don't really like cooking, you have a problem. You're going to have to suck it up, right? Maybe y'all can discuss the days that, on this day I cook and on this day you cook, or whatever. I don't know. But if you don't like cooking, don't get married. I'm serious. Like, and I know that's very trivial, but I'm so serious, because these men, that's what they expect. Now, fortunately for me, I did marry someone who he already cooked. Like, he already cooked. He could already cook, right? So that, even though he didn't really say it, I knew that it was still expected, even though he was fine cooking on his own. Like, a lot of times he would come home, and especially when my daughter was really little and I was exhausted, I would be like, look, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't cook anything. So he would be fine with coming home and cooking his food or whatever, right? But anyway, I don't want to say too long on cooking, but that's just one aspect of it, because we know that those things are expected, because you're already seen as that's what you're supposed to do, right? So I really, like, had to sit with that. I was like, do I want to be doing all that? And so I just chalked it up and was like, whatever, because I want to be a wife and blah, 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 right? So the other fear that I had was, honestly, I did not know what direction my life was going to go in. And I was actually really afraid of not knowing what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I think that is one of the reasons why a lot of women get married. They get to the point where they're like, I don't know what to do with myself, so I'm just going to get married. I really do. Like, I would love to know the statistics on that. When I divorced the kitchen too. I know that's right. Right? Even now, I tell my children, I'll be like, I don't know what to tell you. You better go nuke something in the microwave, because I'm telling you right now, I'm not doing it. Like, it's only certain times, specific things that I'll cook for, and plus my son has autism, so that's a whole other thing. Now we talking about texture and all this stuff going on. So it's a whole other thing. But my daughter, I think she's actually gonna be the one to, like, really start cooking. She actually likes cooking. And that's why I be telling her, girl, you better go on in there. Look, let's go to the store, get the stuff you need, and go and get the cooking, because I'm telling you, you waiting on me, you gonna starve. Seriously, if you waiting on me, you gonna be hungry. And we not door dashing all the time. That's expensive. So, yeah, child. Like I'll be like, look, you gonna starve waiting on me. But let's always make sure that the pantries and the everything is stocked, refrigerator, the freezer things. People like, oh, you're eating frozen food. Well, yeah, whatever. I got growing kids, man. I don't have time. I really don't. Like, not even that. I don't want to. I don't want to go in there being the galloping gourmet. I don't want to do it. And people can think whatever they want. But I think once children get to a certain age, they should be able to go in there and handle those things. My daughter can go in there and handle that. She can go in there and cook for herself. So I'm not really worried about that. So I just make sure that they have what they need so she can go in there and prepare her food. My son is different. I still have to do those things. But anyway, Tiara, you got me way off on a tangent. Okay, so so the other fear was not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I had the degree, right? I had a good paying job, but the company I was working for, they ended up closing that particular office. So all of us ended up being basically laid off. I did get a nice severance though. So I had the severance. I got my unemployment, right? And I was still good because look, I didn't have any kids. I didn't have any. It was just me. But once that last company laid me off, then I was just like, okay, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Like I had no idea. And so I felt lost. And, so I was with this person, right? And, you know, he checked off all the boxes. And so I was like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. But honestly, even throughout that whole process, there was always that part of me that was like, don't do it. Don't do it. And this is what I talk about with women. You have to listen to your gut. When I talk about that shadow self, that's who is talking to you. She's talking to you. She's trying to get your attention. Don't do that shit. And what we do is we take our intuition, we take that wisdom part of us, because that aspect of us that carries and holds the wisdom, we take that and we bury it. And we only want to do what our own desires, right? Nothing wrong with desires, so I'm trying to word this right. But we're only looking at what's in front of us, right? And then we move according to that. It's like we're not doing the critical thinking that we need to do. We're not listening to our intuition. I just want to get married, and I just want to have children, and I'm gonna get with this guy, and we're gonna do it. And like I said, but the back of your mind is telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. So those were the reasons. So being fearful of being alone, right? Um, and not knowing what to do with my life, having no direction, right? And being afraid that I'm gonna be too old to have kids. This is why, like I said, these are the reasons why a lot of women get married and they make these life altering decisions based on those things. And it's like, if you don't have, and that's why I always say that young women, we need older women to really talk to us and to be honest and straightforward with us and not sugarcoat these things, because usually women who have been married for 20, 25 years and they got a few kids and all this stuff, even if you go to them and want to get the for real truth about marriage and all that, they're still going to sugarcoat it to a degree, right? They say things like, oh, well, yeah, I had to put up with a lot, but, that's what you do when you're married and you're supposed to work hard. And yeah, and he's this way and I'm this way. And we went through a lot. And, and I even left him at one point. And, and all these things. But they never tell you to, it's almost like they present it in a way for it's not necessarily a cautionary tale. Like for me, I present mine as a cautionary tale. Like I'll tell a woman in a minute, I don't think you should do that shit. But if you are, be strategic. And this is not what women, older women, are telling us when we're young. They're not telling us that. They're not saying, hey, this is what I did. This is what I went through. Don't do it. But if you're going to do it this way. They're not telling us that. They're just telling us all the things that they went through. And then on top of that, tell you, but, don't leave because you're going to break up the family and that's going to mess the kids up. And blah, blah, and it's always that narrative of stay for the kids. And so I know for me, I had a long time ago, that was never my, I never viewed it that way. I never bought into the stay in a miserable marriage for the children. Like I never bought into that. And so that was the one thing I knew, that was like, if I do get married, excuse me, I'm not going to stay in it just for my children. I'm not going to be miserable I'm not doing that. Like, and people will say that's selfish, and it might be. I don't really care, because when you talk to children, like adults, children who they saw their parents like really going through it, a lot of them will say to you, I wish they had gotten divorced even sooner. Like, I remember my daughter used to be like, will y'all just end this already because it's enough. Like, she used to say this to me. So I never bought into that having to stay for the kids. Like, nah. I'm like I said, I had said a long time ago, there's no way I'm doing that. So, you know, so like I said, diving into the shadow, right? And really thinking about why I did what I did. I even wanted to, it was almost like, and me and my sister was talking about this not too long ago, because we realized that, excuse me, y'all, it's vanity. Um, she said that she realized a long time ago that the reason why she also did it was because we wanted to not be like our mom, right? Our mom was a single mom. Um, she couldn't make the marriage, because me and my sister, we have two different fathers. She couldn't make her first marriage work with my sister's father, and then with my father, they just couldn't make it work. They couldn't do it. And me and my sister both were like, we don't want to be that way. We don't want to be like our mom in that way. And it was so interesting when I talked to my sister, because I didn't know that that's how she was thinking. And she didn't know that that's what I was thinking until we had that conversation. So it was really interesting that we both had that same mindset, right? And so I was like, I'm not going to be a single mom. I'm not, it was like this. I had all that going on. And I'm not going to be like my mom, because my mom couldn't make relationships work. And I don't want to be that way. And I'm going to make it work and all this stuff, right? These were things that were, like I said, that's in the shadow, right? Those are the things that I was holding on to for my reasons for wanting to get married and have kids and all of these things. Because it was like, I wanted to, like I said, I didn't want to be like my mom when it came to that. And so, and I was determined to do that whole stay at home mom wife thing. I was determined to do that. Like, I was like, that's what I want. I want to be at home with my children, because the mother's the first teacher. And that is true. But again, we always have to think about why we're doing the things that we're doing as women. Are we doing it because that's who we are, and knowing that's who we are because we've done the work on ourselves? Or are we doing it because that's what's expected? Are we doing it because of all these philosophies and ideologies that we've been fed ever since we were young? Because as I was going through my own, I guess, consciousness, elevation or whatever, I came through like most so-called black women. so-called, that's another day, I'll get into that one day. But we'll just say black women. Okay. So, like most black women, right? I came through that whole Black Power experience, right? The Black Power movement and the Pan Africanism, and and in that rhetoric, they're teaching that the black man is public enemy number one, and but he's the god, and all this stuff. So this is the rhetoric that I'm getting, right? And not even seeing how patriarchal this shit is. This is why when black men act like black folks aren't affected by patriarchy, I'm like, how is that? Patriarchy is the umbrella that over all of this shit. So what are y'all talking about? But I came through that, and I'm not even knocking it. I mean, I think that part is actually needed. I think it's great to find out, the real history and the truth of us, and then getting into finding out about the indigenous people here in the Americas and what they really look like. If they look like this, they look like us, right? And so, coming through that whole movement, like I went through the whole Moorish thing, all of that. And that's where I learned law and civics. And I was like in my bag when it came to that years ago. Like I was serious. Like I would even, I remember I was on like this, mutual friend of, at the time, my husband at the time, a mutual friend of ours, um, he was so impressed, I guess, with my knowledge base and all that. He was like, I need you to come and talk to these other people, blah, blah, blah. So it was just like this whole thing. It was just me by myself, and it was like 4 or 5 other people. And I mean, I was in my bag, y'all. I was going in. And so I came through all of that, right? So, but even with all of that, like I said, if you are making a mind altering decision like marriage and eventual motherhood, you really have to sit down with yourself as a woman and ask yourself, why do I even want this? Because look, most of us are not doing the work on ourselves. And even when we come through those ideologies, like I said, we think that's all we have to do. Because it's okay, so as when we're coming into the whole black consciousness awareness, right? That is still a collectiveness, right? And it can also even be a little bit of a hive mind mentality, right? But for a lot of black folks, they think that that's all they have to do. They just have to be like, it's all about us and we as a people this and we as a people that, and blah, blah. And that's where they stay. There's no individual work being done, right? You can be black power all day long, but what trauma are you still holding on to? How are you showing up and navigating life when you're not preaching the black power rhetoric? Like, what does your everyday life look like? How do you respond to others? Right? That is the work that's not being done. So you can black power and Pan Africanism all day long in Egypt and Kemet, blah, 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 blah. You can do that all day long. But who are you? Who is your core identity? What traumas are you carrying on to? What fears do you have? Because a lot of times, those fears and those trauma have nothing to do with the whole black power Pan Africanism stuff. That is all like groupthink, like I said, hive mind, and that's where that is, and that's where you need to keep that, because it gets to a point where you have to really dive deep and do the work on yourself. What brought me into that, to do that work, was when I started studying the occult more. I think it went from the whole black power movement or whatever, right? Then going into more history and all that stuff, and the law and civics. Then it took me from that into heavily into the occult. I've always been into the occult. I'm going to talk about that one day too, because that's always been, even as a child, um, it has always been in me and a part of me. But going from, and even when you're dealing with the whole, when you dive deep into Moorish history and stuff, there's a lot of occult elements to it, because the Moors were magicians, right? When I say, I'm not talking about just the men, I'm talking about the women, right? The Moorish women, they were magicians. So They're your Eastern stars and your high priestesses and all those are Moorish women, or the indigenous women here in the Americas, right? So, so it took me into diving a little more deep into the occult, right? Into witchcraft and all of these things, right? So once I did that and I really started diving real deep into myself, that's when I realized I don't want this anymore. Because I realized again, and then it started taking me into a really understanding patriarchy. Like, I knew we were under patriarchy, but I didn't know the inner workings of it, right? Because I thought, like so many black folks, that doesn't affect us. That's the white men and white women and all that stuff, right? And there are certain elements that are separate from the way we how we deal with it as so-called black women, and how white women, Asian women, Latina, all of these, we all are underneath this father rule, but it shows up for us differently. It affects us differently, right? So I started studying heavily and getting an understanding of the inner workings of the patriarchal structure, right? So once that started happening, I was like, I don't want this shit anymore, right? And so that's what happens when you start diving into that shadow, because it makes you look back at the decisions that you made, not for you to stay there, but to just help you to, because actually when you start thinking back to why you did this and why you did that, actually helps you to have realizations about where you are presently, right? And so it's good to, when you're doing that work, I think that's a natural process. When you're really diving deep into that shadow, it's naturally to go back. It's natural to go back and look at, you know, why you did this, why you made that decision at that time, what you were going through at that time, what was your mindset. It really helps when you're doing that work, because if you're trying to gain an understanding of who you are, you have to go back, right? You have to visit the past, because you look at those things and you start to look around you and you start to see how all of those decisions that you made where you are currently is a culmination of all of those decisions. So you have to go back. But like I said, it's not to stay there. A lot of times what women will do this type of work, and we have to process, and then we stay there. I remember my therapist told me, because I remember I said to her, I was like, oh my God, I just had a breakthrough. And I'm sending her this text message, this long text message, right? She texted me back, gave me some feedback and stuff on it. She was really, really good at that. But then at the end of that, she said, now don't stay in this processing phase for the next 3 weeks. Don't do that. Right? And so, because she knew that was my pattern. I had a pattern of doing that. I would have a breakthrough in a session, and then I would stay on that shit for like a week, 2 weeks. And then I would come back into the session, and she's like, okay, we covered that though. Like, why are we still here? So, right? So she told me at the very end, don't stay in that for too long. Yes, take the time, process it, understand it, but don't stay there. And so, that was one of the things that, like, I really appreciate that. I still go back. I still go back and revisit certain things. I think it's so important because you're always doing the work. It never ends. We're always doing the work on ourselves because we're so multifaceted. Like, for women, I mean, we have so much. Just being the feminine comes with a lot. And that's not a bad thing. It's that we carry the portal. We walk around with a portal of life and death all day, every day. Right? That's power. So that's why it's so important when you're doing that, when you're doing that shadow work and you're diving deep into that abyss. That's still womb work, because your womb is connected to your mind. So that's why you start reflecting back on past relationships, past sexual experiences, and all of these things. All of it is connected. All of it is interconnected, and it all has to do with the work that you have to do on yourself. So you ask you go back and you're like, damn, I placed myself in this situation, and this is why this occurred, right? So, when I talk about, why I got married, and I talk about those fears that I had, Once you do that work and you start having all of these realizations, it is really, really hard to stay in the marriage. It's hard to stay in the relationship. This is why now we're starting to see a an increase in women leaving their relationships or their marriages because they've had this awakening. And people will think that that's dumb. Oh, why are you leaving because of that? That's very heavy though, and that's why no one will understand your experience better than you. And women have to stop second guessing themselves and stop allowing all of these outside influences to make them feel some kind of way, because they know within their, like, they know without a shadow of a doubt that they have to leave. And that's how I was. I knew that I couldn't endure this any longer. I couldn't stand this because it's like, I was like, this isn't me. Like this, and this is why I talk about the roles and stuff that we take on, because as I talked about in my article a couple of weeks ago, I talked about identity swiping at birth. Because when you're born, all the people around you already have the role and stuff that they want to place up on you before you even get to decide. So you don't even know who you are because everybody else is telling you who and what you are and how you're supposed to show up. So you're not even given a chance to figure that out for yourself. You're not even given a chance to your own inner authority to be established. You don't even get a chance to establish that because everybody's telling you who and what you are and how you're supposed to show up. So when you start really truly doing that work, that's going to happen. You're going to want to leave. And people don't want to hear that, and that's fine, but you're going to want to leave. And if you stay and you're trying to work it out, that's going to get even harder for you, because if he's not doing the same, I mean, look, there's already a natural sexual competition between men and women. It's in nature. We're a part of nature. Why do humans act like they're not a part of nature? It's really wild to me. But there's already a natural conflict there. So if you are having this awakening, self-discovery, realizing things about yourself, there's going to be conflict. I remember one of the things for me that started happening, and this also was hiding in my shadow. I decided that I was going to be this agreeable wife. And that came from seeing all of because now here we go with black male worship, being exposed to all the complaints that black men had of black women. Oh, they nag. They have an attitude. They're this, they're that. They're too masculine. And they're. So I was like, okay, I don't want to be a nag. So I'm going to be the agreeable wife. I'm going to let him lead, right? Because he's the black man and he's God and and all this stuff, right? Black male worship. So I decided that I was going to be the agreeable wife. I'm not going to say anything whenever. So when financial decisions were made without my input, even if I felt some kind of way about it, I didn't say anything. Um, you know, I just did like I always talk about. I saw the world through his lens, right? Um, what I thought was protection was really rooted in paranoia. Um, I mean, he has a lot of work he has to do on himself. I'm not taking anything away from him or anything like that. I'm not saying that. Like, I wasn't physically abused or anything like that, but there's so many different elements in marriages that people, it's like they can only see if you were physically abused or if you were verbally abused. Even verbally abused don't get the same. The two reasons that women are told to leave a marriage is if he's cheating or if he's beating on you. Other than that, you're supposed to stay. He got a good job, right? You get to stay home, right? So what do you have to complain about? So there's so many different elements there. And this is not about talking about him, so I'm not going to do that. But I will just say that I started seeing the world through his lens, and I even realized things about him that he didn't realize about himself. And, and that's just what it is. Now, for a lot of men, specifically black men, they don't want to do the work on themselves. So what ends up happening is you there's this conflict that starts taking place, right? Like, I know for me, I went from being being agreeable to being very disagreeable. Like, so we would get into these arguments, and we went from never arguing to arguing. And I even was like, okay, maybe, you know, maybe I should just go back to, being agreeable, because I can't leave, right? So maybe I need to be a little nicer. I use air quotes, y'all. But anyway, maybe I need to be a little more nicer. Maybe I need to be more agreeable again, not be so confrontational, and just, and so I even tried that, and it was like, I was like, I don't like that. Like, I don't, that's not me. Like, I have this big brain in my head, and right? And one of my skill sets, one of my talents is being very, very great at communicating, being very articulate, able to figure things out. Like, I don't even have to have a whole lot of information to figure some shit out. Like, I have these, I used to be like, I have these gifts and these skills and all of this stuff, and it's like I'm just sitting here being like, okay, right? And that's not me. So I took those parts of myself and I hid it inside of, I always say, a time capsule. I placed myself on the shelf, or I placed myself in that time capsule, and I was just like, okay. And I'm not going to be a nag, because black women are seen as nags, right? I'm not going to disagree with you, and I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to be the typical, stereotypical black woman in a relationship. Like, I was so serious about that. I was very committed to that. I was very committed to it. And once I started, like I said, once that work, and like, man, and I started pulling her out, I was like, fuck that. I don't care. Like, and you can think whatever you want to think about me. Like, when you do that as the woman in the man, you will become the villain, no doubt. You will be the villain in his story, and his comrades will know. They'll know. I remember one of his comrades. He and I used to be so cool with each other, right? Once all these things started happening, I have even been referred to as the crazy wife, right? That was the what I was referred to once things got, where it was like, I'm out of here, like, you know what I'm saying, like. But the friend, he knew a few of my family members, because it was like we all came from like this inner circle, right? And so when he would go to like certain, gatherings, social gatherings or whatever, there would be talk. Which I used to think, I was like, why are these people talking about our relationship, our marriage problems? Like, why are people at social events talking about that? Like, that shit was weird to me. But I got word from my aunt. She was like, so and so was at the event. I was like, oh really? He was like, and he refers to you as the crazy wife. I was like, wow, that is really interesting. I thought that was so interesting. But yeah, I mean, it was like a lot, y'all. There was a lot going on at that time. And when you start doing that work on yourself, I'm sorry, if you're in a long-term relationship or a marriage, that shit is I mean, you're either gonna leave, or you're gonna still take part of yourself and stay buried to make it work. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So, I mean, those are really the options. People can say whatever they want and try to make it like, oh, it can work and you can do. No, you can't. Because if only one person is doing the work on themselves, how is any of that going to work? You're going to be in conflict with each other. You can't avoid it. Like I said, men and women are actually already in conflict with each other naturally. So just imagine when you start doing the work on yourself and you awaken that bitch that's been in you all that time, y'all gonna have problems. There's gonna be a lot of problems. So it's unavoidable. So people can be, they can romanticize it all they want to. You're gonna have problems. As long as women are compliant in these marriages and these relationships, then they can work. As long as you're compliant, it'll work. As I said before, your submissiveness is implied. He's not gonna say it. It's implied. Especially if you in a marriage where your foundation is either Christianity or Islamic. Even if he's not a practicing Muslim or anything like that, that's his foundation. Your submission is implied, right? Whether it's talked about or not. So I don't know. Like I when I see all of this content about marriage and how as a woman you can still show up whole, you're going to fragment yourself. And that's why I don't talk much about my situation and how things were for me, but as I've stated before, I wasn't physically abused or anything like that. Like, people would think that, like, oh, you're dumb. Like, why would you not want that anymore? He works every day, he makes a good salary, you get to stay home with the children. Like, why wouldn't you want that? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. But see, my whole thing is women are so basically the standards are in the toilet. Just the fact that a man gets up and goes to work every day is like impressive to women. And it's like, okay, he was doing that before y'all met. He had to still eat. He had to pay bills, right? So he had to work. He was working every single day and taking care and paying the bills and stuff before y'all met. So why is that such an amazing feat once you get married? Like, that's so crazy to me. So when you think about the reasons why you got married, right? You really, really got to dive deep. You really got to ask yourself those questions because you don't want to repeat that same pattern. Women are still going, and this is why I have respect for a lot of the women who are like, look, y'all need to stop dealing with these men. Work on yourself. Like, I'm all for that. Everything, more than one thing can be true at the same time, right? But I am not naive to the fact that regardless of what's going on, women are still going to get with men. They're still going to want to be in relationships. They're still going to want to get married. They're going to have their kids. They're going to want to do all that. That's not going anywhere. So the best thing you can do is to just be strategic about it. Do the work on yourself first. Don't just be doing it. Like I said, ask yourself the questions why. Is it my upbringing, family, society, community, religion? Why am I doing this? Is it pressure? Is it like this quiet pressure to get married and start having children at a certain point when I get to a certain age? Is that where that is? Like, why am I doing this? I always tell people, when someone that you know is getting married, ask them why. When they first say to you, "Oh, we're engaged," they showing you the ring. We're getting married. Ask them why. See what they say. Because I have found that people do not like to be asked why. You ever notice that? People don't like you to ask them why. So next time someone close to you, friend of yours, whatever, relative, whoever, when they tell you that they're getting married, ask them why and see what they say. What do you mean why? Because we love each other. Okay. Love is fleeting. Why are you getting married? Most people don't even know what love is. Love is a frequency. It's not an emotion. So ask them why. Right? So These are things that you have to ask yourself. You have to be real, real serious with yourself before you get married. Like, you have to sit down and have a meeting, right? You have to have a meeting with yourself. And honestly, I don't even think a woman should get married until after that prefrontal cortex is fully developed. Like, you don't need to be making marriage decisions at 21, 22 years old. I'm sorry, I don't, those are my views. So people don't have to agree with me, but I don't think that you should be doing that. You definitely shouldn't be having children before that. I remember, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Frances Cress Welsing. She wrote this book, The ISIS Papers, and one of the things she said in there is that a woman should not be getting married or having children until she's 28. Now, according to the manosphere, you hit the wall at 28. So, but I mean, I just use that as an example. Of course, we could care less about what they're talking about over there. But she said, for a woman, 28. Before then, you should be getting your education, getting established in whatever sort of career, or if you're starting a business, whatever, you need to be doing that first. So that's why 28 would be an ideal age to start getting married and having children and all that stuff. So, um, yeah, but your compliance and your submission is implied. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how much of a good man he is, or he's this and he's that, and your submission is implied. Because what we need to understand as women, men have been brainwashed by this fucking patriarchy as well. They are just as delusional as women. But the patriarchy has told them that they are the dominant ones and women are submissive. So they are to submit to you. What's the structure? God over man, man over women, and women over the children. This is why women are seen as children. Well, women act like children, but that's something else. I talk about that all the time about women being in daughtership. But the hierarchical structure is that God over man, man over woman, women over children. But really, it's God over man and man over the women and the children, because you are placed in the same level in the hierarchy as the children. Is women behave as children, right? This is why they be in competition with their daughters, because they act like they're perpetually in high school. So they're competing. 40-year-old woman is competing with her 18 or 19-year-old daughter. What? Right? And then you wonder why you're being treated like a child. It's because you're acting like one. So that is like I said, that's the hierarchical structure. So that's why I can't say this enough. You have to study yourself. You have to do the work, right? You have to embrace that. You have to get into that shadow. I always say that you have to get into the mist of your trauma and face it, right? You have to do that, because when you don't do that, the results of you not understanding who you are, they show up in every aspect in your life. Do you recommend good books to read? I love how informed you are. Oh, thank you. Okay, so let me tell you real quick, Sabrina. I'm gonna tell you right now, child. I can't even think. Wait, let me think. Let me think of a good book, because now I'm at the point where everything is, I'm pulling it from within, right? Um, and in my lived experience, observation, all of these things. But I would say that some really there's two good books I could think of right now off the top of my head, actually. Um, oh God, okay, so I don't know how familiar you are with anything that has to do with Moorish history or literature or anything like that, but there's a website. I'm gonna put it in the chat. I'm gonna put the name of the book. So the book is jeez, what's the name of that book? I think it's The Science of the Number Nine. Oh my God! You know what? You're just gonna have to just go to the site. Okay, so I'm gonna put the name of the site. It's RV Bay. I'm assuming that they're still in business. That is still up. It's RV Bay Publications, and um, the author is Taj Tariq Bay. He has a lot of books, a lot of publications on there, and I learned a lot reading his stuff. So that's definitely a good one. Um, this is weird. And let's see. You'll see the book. You'll see something that's referencing the science of the number nine or something like that. You'll see it once you go on there. Also, there's a book by C.M. Bay. I'm gonna put that in there too. Um, his books are over there as well. One of his books is The Clock of Destiny, and I'll put that in the chat as well. So, um, those things should kind of get you started. Um, there's another book. What's the name of that book? You're welcome. Um, jeez, I can't. You know what? Hold on. Hold that thought. Let me turn the camera off real quick because y'all don't need to be seeing what I got going on back here. I'm cleaning up and stuff going on, so I'm turning the camera off real quick. Okay, I'm gonna get this book and I'm gonna put it on camera for you. Ouch. Okay. Hit my foot. Okay. So, this book. You see it? You take a screenshot. But it's called The Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. But the author's name is Barbara Walker. I'll just put her name in there. Get that book. That's the author. You just look her up and you'll see it. That book is great. It's a great read. It is, like I said, it is encyclopedia, but it's a great. All women should have that, especially women that are doing this work. All women should have it. And of course, the book When Women Ran with Wolves. That's another good one too. Um, Another book is When God Was a Woman. Now, a lot of times when women are referencing that book, they do leave out certain things. You're welcome. They leave out certain things in the book. And one of the things that I always talk about, and nobody seems to want to respond to it, is how the women during that time, because when God was a woman, so obviously women were ruling, right? But one of the things that they would do is they would take young boys as lovers. And sometimes it would be their sons, and we're talking 13, 14 year olds. So all I'm going to say is when I talk about women, I never address them as victims because I don't see women as victims. You are the source to life and death. You are the gatekeeper. You hold all the power. You are birthing the sons. We're birthing all of these males that we complain about, right? So the power lies in us. So women have to take the bitter with the sweet. Yes, you can talk about how powerful your womb is, and because you powerful you are because you carry the womb and you're a goddess and all this stuff. Okay, but the goddess got to take the also got to take the sour shit. Like you gotta take responsibility for all of that. It ain't just about the glamour of being the goddess, right? You got to take both. So that's why women, you have to take responsibility for your degenerate sons. I'm sorry. It's real easy to blame the father. Oh, his father wasn't around, blah, blah. Okay. Does that affect him? Absolutely. But you brought him here. So you're not a victim. The only victims to me are people, children, and people who can't defend themselves. Right? So, and when I say that you're not a victim, I'm not saying that, yeah, you asked for that or that's what you get. None of that. All I'm saying is I don't I don't participate in the victim Olympics when it comes to women. I do not address women as victims. I address women as the powerful beings that they are. So that's how I'm gonna come at you. So that's why women don't get a pass with me, because I know how powerful you are, and you just choose not to be that. You wait for a man to tell you to be powerful. Women are like asking men for permission to be powerful. Please let me be powerful. Please allow me to be the powerful being that I am. Do I get permission? Like, this is what women are doing. I don't deal with women in that manner. You're not a victim when you come to me, right? So, I always say, when I get new people to join me, like new followers on Facebook, every once in a while I'll be like, look, I'm definitely gonna say something that you're not gonna like. That's maybe for women. Like, I don't know why men follow me on Facebook. Sometimes it's just really bizarre. It's really strange to me sometimes, because I'm like, are you not looking at my content? I'm not nice to y'all. Like, men don't get a pass, especially black men. Like, y'all don't get a pass when you come over. I'm not praising you. Now, I'm not gonna just, like, my content is not just about bashing you, because my content is for women. I'm talking to women about their power and who they are. But at the same time, I'm like, if you're a dude, like, why are you coming over here? I always find that to be a little strange. So, hold on a second, y'all. Don't go nowhere. I don't even know if y'all can see me. Okay. All right. I hate when people call me when I'm doing lives. Um, yeah, so that's how, that's, and like I was saying, like, I don't deal with women as victims. So when you come into the container, we're going to pull those things out, right? All of those things that you hide in your shadow, we're going to pull it out, and we're going to address it, right? And then we're going to look at your patterns. There's some really intensive work that we do in the container. So, um yeah, I don't address women as victims. I'm gonna address you as a powerful being that you are. Now, if you choose to walk in that power after you deal with me, awesome. If you choose not to, that's your choice too. But you'll never get the woe is me. You'll never get any of that from me. Now, do I empathize? Absolutely. A good friend of mine, she always tells me how nurturing I am, even when I'm not trying to be. She's like, sis, you're nurturing. You can't. I'll be like, dang, I ain't trying to nurture everybody. Damn. But yeah. So, and I talk all the time about how, for women, I know women. I can see, like, I'm very good at connecting with your shadow, with your darker aspects of the feminine. I'm very good at connecting with that. That's why my work is rooted in that. So when you come over to me, you got to be ready to do the work. I'll know, when you're not doing it and when you are doing it. So I just, like I said, I have that ability to connect with you. I understand women. I'm a woman. Like, come on. So we have these common shared experiences as women, but there's still like this other part that when you really really start doing that work and you really start diving deep into yourself, you start seeing those same characteristics in other women, and so you're able to connect to that, right? I talk about all the time women's natural propensity for jealousy, and how we have to address that, because what are you jealous of? Like, why are you jealous of her? Right? And so these are things, and it's not like you're a bad person because you're jealous, right? It's just it is a thing. And so we have to address it. I always talk about how you have to rise above your your operating system, right? Your default system. Like I say, for men have a beast inside of them, that they have an untamed beast inside of them. right? And most of them are not going to do the work to tame it. And they don't have to, because women are there to take it all. They're there to absorb it all. They're going to regulate his emotions. They're going to do all of that, right? So men don't have to do that because women do it for them. But then also talk about how women live their shadow through the men. They outsource their shadow to men. So these things, these types of dynamics is very dysfunctional. And this is what happens between men and women all the time. This is like the norm. It's the norm for men and women to seek to siphon off of each other. So women want to outsource their shadow to men. Men want women to regulate their emotions. This is the norm. Then you wonder why your nervous system is fried as a woman, because you refuse to do the work. You refuse to get to know who you are, who that core identity is. You refuse to do it. You just go get a man. And I know this because that's what I did. I was so afraid to figure out who I was, what I wanted out of life, that I just went ahead and took the easy road and got married. This is why when women be trying to act like it's so hard to find a man ain't hard to find. It ain't hard to find a man, and it ain't hard to get a husband. They are a dime a dozen. It's real easy to do. Getting a man is like one of the easiest things you could do as a woman. Even get him to marry you. Because men want to get married. This is the thing. It's like both things can be true at once. Men don't really want to commit like that, but they do, right? Because number one, they need somebody to regulate their emotions for them, and they want to, you know, preserve their genes. They have to carry on the species, which most of them don't give a fuck about them children. It's just about, look at what I can do. I have sperm. I can fertilize a woman and get her pregnant. So it's all for the glorification of their egos. It don't have nothing to do with, oh my God, I love my family and I want to take care of my children, blah, blah. Please. Now, are there men out there like that? Sure. My brother's one of them. And this is not about propping him up, but I know the type of man that he is. He's very integral. And I saw that. So I could see that in him. I would even say, even my children's father, there was a lot of work that he needed to do and still needs to do. But the one thing he never did was abandon his children, right? Now, again, this ain't about propping nobody up, because hell, you got kids, you're supposed to take care of them. That's what you're supposed to do. So it's like we want to give men all these gold stars for taking care of their children. No, that's what he's supposed to do. But again, as I said, the naming the reasons why men and women get together. And like I said, for men, they don't care about them kids. It's just about, I need somebody that will regulate my emotions. I need her, like, you become his best friend. You become his confidant in every single thing. You can't get a break. It's always, you're either regulating them kids' emotions or you regulating that man's emotions. You don't even have enough time to regulate your own, right? But what women do is, and then they outsource their shadow to men. So this is why they get the bad boys and the thugs and the psychopaths and all this shit that women be doing, right? So what I'm realizing is that the more we deconstruct patriarchy, the more we're going to see how women contribute to this shit. They nurture it, perpetuate it, they are complicit in it. So the more we deconstruct it, the more we're going to see women are not innocent in this. And a lot of women don't want that. They just want to continue to be like, oh, men are this, and the patriarchy this, and they did this, and they did that, and look at that. And you got all these men coming together, and they're discussing how they're going to rape children and their daughters. And all. Yeah, because they have a beast. But who's birthing the beast? They're not getting here by themselves. They're coming through your wombs. I say it all the time. That monster was somebody's baby. That monster came through some woman's womb. So, getting to know yourself as a woman and diving into that shadow, that's womb work, right? So, yes. All right. So, I hope you ladies got some value from this today. As I said before, I have my private class coming up. I'm gonna be getting into the dark feminine activation code. My one-on-one container is ready for you when you're ready to come through. If you need to do your free 45-minute session first, please do. Most of the times when women do that, it's an easier transition into the container. So, link is in my bio, right? If you're not following me on Facebook and TikTok, link is in the bio. Now, TikTok, I talk about different things. So it's kind of like, might be kind of random, but just come through anyway. I talk about this stuff too, but I talk about some other things. So I don't really care about all the FYP and all that shit on TikTok. I just go on there and be like, look, this was amazing. Thank you, Sabrina. I'm so glad you came through. You missed yesterday's live, but I did a commentary on the series Nemesis. But you can still find it if you want to go check it out. So anyway, ladies, that's it. That was let's see. I talked about the class that's coming up. Get on my list if you're not. I think all of you are subscribers of mine though, so you'll be getting all the information about the class coming up. Also, if you missed the Woman Underneath masterclass I did a couple of weeks ago, that's at my Stand Store as well. So everything is at Stand Store. I got some freebie stuff over there as well. So yeah, so y'all go and visit the store, and also have the community, Cypher community, and some really good stuff in there. So yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, go, like I said, link is in the bio, and I will see y'all on my live next week. But anyway, I'll see you on Substack. So all right, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day.